Hey my little party animals, hiphiprenee here today with a brand new speed build for you, and this speed build is actually the new house that we just moved into for the Birthstone Legacy Challenge. So if you watched the last episode of my Birthstone Legacy Challenge, towards the very end of the episode, we did move into a new house, and this is the speed build for that particular house. So I do want to say before we get too far into this particular build that this is not like a typical speed build that I would do where, I am making the house just look super duper amazing from the get-go. I only had so much money to be able to work with. We do have a decent amount of money within our current generation, which we're actually only in the first generation right now. And we do have a decent amount of money because we are focused on the jungle. So we have been making just stupid amounts of money by going to the jungle and collecting artifacts and all sorts of things. That being said, we don't have, hundreds of thousands of simoleons or anything like that. So I really did have to be very cautious as far as spending money was concerned. And something that I had to be even more cautious about was the fact that I was not going to be landscaping this build. So I actually sent this build over to one of my very, very good friends, LilacLydiaDeetz. She is very good at landscaping. I am not so good at landscaping, and she offered to help me out. So I sent this over to her. So I did also want to make sure that I left enough money for her to be able to play around with as far as the landscaping was concerned. So this build that you are seeing right here is very large. For one thing, it is a really, really big build. I went a little overboard to start off. So you're going to notice as we kind of go along, I do end up toning the build down quite a bit. I ended up taking in quite a few grid squares from each of the sides of this build. A lot of these windows end up getting switched out because I did the entire exterior of the build, and then I checked how much the build was, and I was like, oh my god, I've done just the exterior and I'm at like 40,000 simoleons. This is absurd. I'm going to have no money to be able to do the interior of this build, but then LilacLydiaDeetz is going to have like 5 simoleons to be able to do something outside for the landscaping. So I do end up going with many, many cheaper items. You're going to notice again, I'm going to switch out most, if not all of these windows to less expensive windows because I didn't realize how expensive these shuttered windows were. It's absurd how much these cost. And I did end up going around and I changed out a lot of the fencing. I ended up bringing in quite a few of the walls. The walls do end up making up for a lot of the money that I was lacking in the beginning. Walls are surprisingly expensive in The Sims, guys. I don't know if you have noticed that, but walls really cost a lot of money. That being said, unfortunately, taking the roofing in is not something that is going to give you any extra simoleons. But I do go around and end up downgrading most, if not everything, including these floorings that I'm putting down. So there's a lot of stuff that you guys get to watch me put down that is going to end up just straight up not being in the build. It's just not in the build. I did end up following a floor plan for this build, and I think that's why it turned out so large, because the floor plan for this build was absolutely massive. It was massive, and I don't know why I thought it was such a good idea to go with this particular build. I don't know why I didn't feel like I could stray away from the floor plan. I think I just really liked the way that this floor plan was set up. And the reason being is because I really wanted to make sure that I had a large house for my Sims to be able to grow in. If you did not watch the last episode of the Birthstone Legacy Challenge, stop this video right here and go watch the last episode because there are spoilers ahead. So if you have not seen the last episode, just know that in about 5 seconds, I'm going to be giving stuff away. So I had to build them a new house because the house that we were currently living in is only a 1-bedroom house. We did have our boyfriend, Juan, move into the house with us, and Quinn, our founder, is actually pregnant right now. So in order to accommodate for baby as well as future babies, I wanted to make sure that we had a decent sized house where we could really kind of just expand our family in this one house for a significant amount of time. I'm hoping to spend at least the rest of this particular generation in this home. And I think we should be able to do that no problem. There are 2 bedrooms downstairs, so you see me actually connecting those 2 bedrooms with that little hallway that is behind the staircase. The room towards the back ends up being the master bedroom, and then that room towards the front ends up being the nursery. And I did end up, when I did the nursery, I was like, wow, I cannot post this build before I post the episode because then everybody's going to know that Quinn's pregnant because there's a nursery in the build. So I did have to wait until after the episode release so that way I wasn't worrying about spoiling anything for anybody. So that is why you are seeing this build after you are seeing us move into the build in the episode, because I did not want to end up posting this and, have people be like, oh, well, you put a nursery in there, so obviously Quinn's pregnant. Like, yeah, I get it. She's pregnant. I totally get it. Did not want to give it away, though. So this is where you start seeing me kind of pulling in the sides of the build. I do believe that I end up doing a little bit more as far as bringing some things in and making some things a little bit smaller. This porch, for instance, is like really excessive. It does stay pretty excessive, but really this entire build is a little excessive. So the exterior, basically what I'm trying to say is the exterior of this build cost a lot of money. It cost just a ridiculous amount of money, and I ended up having to switch out so many windows. So many of those windows end up being, 175 to 250 simoleons, which is absolutely ridiculous, because then you have these really nice windows like these white ones that are only 50 simoleons. Same thing with the doors. Some of these doors are just absurdly expensive. Thank God for Strangerville. These Strangerville doors and archways are surprisingly inexpensive. I think they are only 50 simoleons each, as opposed to some of the other ones, which, like I said, are, upwards of 150 simoleons, even more than that. It's absolutely ridiculous, the price differences that you see in a lot of these things. So this is where you're seeing me, again, take the porch in a little bit more. I switched out all of the railings and everything like that on the porch. I do end up, I believe, switching out the columns as well, only because the columns from Cats and Dogs end up being just a little bit more expensive than I would have liked, instead of just the regular plain white ones. Honestly, there's not a huge difference. I don't think that it's going to ruin my gameplay or anything like that, changing them out to the cheaper ones. So that is something that I had to do. Also, lighting in The Sims is it's real expensive, and I never realize it until I'm really on a budget that, these lights, I'm sorry, why are they 75 simoleons? That is absurd. That is absolutely absurd. I can go to Target and I can get a lamp for $10 in real life. Why am I paying 75 simoleons for a lamp? That's so ridiculous. So then I go around and I start doing the bathrooms first. Now, obviously, these bathrooms, I did have plans for them. They were supposed to be very grand and very luxurious, and that's just not something that I could afford at this point in time. So I did, unfortunately, have to make them far more barren than I wanted to, and I did end up having to use basically the cheapest items for every single room. The exception that I made was the counters, however, because I really, really, really don't like those super cheap counters. They're so ugly. Maybe if there was a white swatch, I would feel better about them and I would have used them, but there's just, the colors are just so horrible. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I just couldn't do it, guys. So I did end up using these Parenthood countertops, which are about 200 simoleons. It was kind of pushing it because I used them in the kitchen also, which was also kind of pushing it. I'm going to be remodeling this house. I'm just going to put this out there. I am going to definitely be remodeling this house as we kind of make money through the rest of the generation. I'm pretty sure that when I moved my Sims into this house, we did have a significant amount of extra money. So I'm sure that I can go in and, immediately upgrade the kitchen, which is probably one of the first things that I want to do, considering in the last episode, Quinn nearly caught on fire. She was cooking and it did not end well. So I want to make sure that we're not using, the cheapest of cheap items, because they do tend to break and catch on fire quite a bit easier than some of the, slightly more expensive things. So bathrooms and kitchen are probably going to be some of the first things that I work on as far as upgrading, as well as beds. Beds is going to be something that I'm going to have to work on as well. And then we are going to have to decorate the nursery, because the nursery right now is literally just a yellow room with a crib in it. That is the only thing that is in the nursery, because I just got to the point where I was like, wow, this house is expensive. So again, you see me cut down the house again. So I did make the house significantly smaller, and it's still a really large house. So we have plenty of space to be working with here. We have plenty of space to grow in. I was having a lot of trouble, as you can see here, trying to figure out windows and things like that, but I did end up making it work. I'm sure, again, going forward, we will switch out windows for some nicer windows, just kind of once we make some money. I didn't want to go crazy overboard, because of course we're going to have to pay our bills too. So not only did we have to be able to afford the house, but we have to be able to continually afford the house. Which again, in this generation, since we are doing jungle adventures and we are getting so many different artifacts and things like that, I'm not really concerned about the cost. I know that we'll be able to renovate this pretty quickly. We will be able to afford it as we kind of, go through the generations and everything like that. So I'm not super worried about it, but I did want to make sure I was being careful so I didn't go crazy overboard here. Now, with this generation being Garnet, the rules of this particular challenge don't say that your house has to represent the color of the generation. All it says is that your sim has to represent the colors of the generation. That being said, I did want to try and bring in a little bit of red to represent the fact that we are in the Garnet generation. So I really did that just in this living room. Every single other room is just kind of how I wanted to decorate it and what I was able to decorate with. But since I did have some red couches available, I kind of thought it made sense to bring in that red just a little bit, just to make sure, that we knew we were in the Garnet generation. You can obviously tell by Quinn's outfit, she's wearing basically maroon from head to toe. And it's a little bit tough with the birthstone challenge as far as colors are concerned, because there are a few different birthstones that are basically the same color. For instance, there's Garnet and Ruby, so both of those are red. Garnet is a little bit more maroon, but they are, both essentially red. There's also Peridot and Emerald, so both of those are green. Peridot is a little bit of a lighter kind of green. Emerald is a little bit of a deeper green, but they are both green. So, there are going to be generations where I'm sure clothing is going to be repeating itself. Decor will be repeating itself. I'm not super concerned about it because I'm having a lot of fun, playing through the actual challenge. If you would like to also play the Birthstone Legacy Challenge, if you check in the description box down below on this video or in any of my Birthstone videos, I have been linking the challenge rules in there. It's just a Google Doc that I made with Kitty Cat Plays with Yarn, who is the co-creator of the challenge with me. So you can always play along with your Sims. It does require you to have a significant amount of the expansion packs and things like that. We go through the jungle, we go through owning a vet clinic, we go through owning a retail lot, we have clubs. You really have to have most, if not all, of the expansion packs, some of the game packs as well. So if you want to play along and there's anything in the challenge that you're just like straight up not able to do because of the way that the challenge is laid out, I mean, feel free to, kind of substitute a generation with something else. We're not opposed to that. We would love for everybody to try this. If you do end up trying it and you record your Birthstone Legacy Challenge, definitely let me and or Kitty Cat Plays with Yarn know. We would absolutely love to see how you guys are completing this challenge. It has been super fun for us so far. I'm going to link her channel down in the description box below as well. So if you want to see her legacy founder, you are welcome to go check her out. Gail is pretty adorable. I really enjoy her, and she's been doing, obviously we're going through the same section of the challenge, so, there are some overlapping things, but our storylines are definitely not crazy similar as far as the actual story is concerned. As far as the challenge rules are concerned, of course, it's very similar. So if you want to go check her out, definitely check her out in the description box down below. Again, just pointing out that a lot of these rooms are kind of barely furnished. There's really not a lot going on. It's something that we are going to be working on as we kind of move through these generations and things like that. I wanted to add as much decor as I possibly could, again, without going crazy overboard. And I do want to let you guys know, with the screenshots that are coming up, we do have screenshots that include the landscaping. The landscaping was not done by me. It was done by a good friend of mine, LilacLydiaDeetz. She did an absolutely fantastic job. She actually tried to record doing her landscaping, and for some reason the video that she sent me will not open on any program in my computer. It keeps saying that it's corrupted, so I was going to try and add her speed build into this speed build, but unfortunately it didn't work out. So there are plenty of screenshots of those, so you can see all of her wonderful landscaping, and I will leave a link to her Twitter down in the description box below so you guys can go take a look at that. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up down below. If you're new here or you're not new here and you're not subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell so you get notifications every single time I post a new video. I will be back with you guys on Wednesday, and Wednesday will actually be a double upload day. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.